For 3,500 years, she has not stopped screaming. Not with sound. Sound cannot survive the centuries, but with her face, frozen, locked open in an expression no embalmer intended, no priest prepared for, and no textbook has ever fully explained. In 1935, deep beneath a tomb in Luxor, archaeologists working for the Metropolitan Museum of Art uncovered a coffin belonging to no one they could name. Inside was a woman, later catalogued simply as the Screaming Woman. Her mouth was open wide, her head was tilted back, and for nearly 90 years that image sat in storage, photographed but unexplained, filed away as one of history's stranger curiosities. Then in 2024, a team of Egyptian scientists did something no one had done before. They didn't just look at her, they looked inside her, using computed tomography, infrared spectroscopy, and chemical analysis to reconstruct, layer by layer, the final chapter of a life that ended more than 3,000 years ago. What they found did not solve the mystery, it deepened it, because everything about how this woman was buried, the imported resins, the deliberate craftsmanship of her wig, the rings on her fingers, tells the story of someone wealthy, someone honored, someone cared for in death, and yet her mouth remains open. Her body was never properly prepared in the way considered essential for the era's elite. Something happened in the space between her final moment and her burial that does not fit the pattern of a peaceful passing. Was she poisoned? Did she die screaming in physical agony? Or does science have a far stranger, far more mundane explanation, one that has nothing to do with murder at all? Nearly 90 years after she was pulled from the earth, the woman without a name may finally be ready to tell us how she died. The question is whether we are ready to hear it. The mummy known as the Screaming Woman was discovered beneath Theban Tomb 71, the burial site of the family of Senmut, the chief architect who served under Queen Hatshepsut around 1479 BC. Because of her burial location near Senmut's relatives, researchers believe she was likely connected to his family, though her exact identity remains unknown to this day. Her coffin and jewelry are held today at the Metropolitan Museum in New York, while her physical remains rest at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo.
In 2024, a peer-reviewed study published in the journal Frontiers in Medicine, led by radiologist Dr. Sahar Salim of Cairo University alongside anthropologist Samia El-Merghani, used CT imaging combined with scientific material analysis to re-examine her remains for the first time using modern tools. The findings were striking. She died at approximately 48 years old. She stood just over 5 feet tall. She had mild arthritis in her spine and several teeth missing, likely lost naturally during her lifetime. Her internal organs, her brain, heart, lungs, liver, kidneys, and intestines, were all still present inside her body, unusual for the mummification practices of her era, which typically required their removal. And despite this incomplete process, she was embalmed using expensive imported materials, frankincense and juniper resin, substances that would have traveled from distant trade regions to reach her. Here is where the case stops making sense. If she was of high enough status to be embalmed with rare imported resins, why does her body show none of the careful, ritualistic preparation expected of someone in her position? Skipping that step was typically a sign of either extreme poverty or extreme urgency. She had neither. Her burial was lavish, her materials were rare, her wig was carefully constructed from palm fiber and treated with mineral compounds to mimic natural hair. Nothing about her burial suggests neglect. So why the open mouth? Why the incomplete process? Embalmers in ancient Egypt were skilled professionals. Closing a mouth was not technically difficult. Something prevented them from doing it, or something made them choose not to. This is the part of the story where we need to be honest about what modern technology actually did here, because the real breakthrough did not come from artificial intelligence alone. It came from a combination of CT scanning and advanced chemical analysis techniques operated by human scientists in 2024. So what role does AI actually play in a story like this? In modern archaeology, AI-assisted image reconstruction is increasingly used to clean up and visually rebuild CT scan data into clear three-dimensional models the public can understand. That is real and it is growing, but its limits matter too. AI cannot diagnose a cause of death. It cannot detect fear or pain in tissue that has been gone for 3,500 years. What it can do is help us see, more clearly than ever, the physical evidence that human scientists have already gathered and interpreted.
The real scientific breakthrough remains human,
Dr. Salim's team confirmed through direct physical evidence that this woman's mummification broke from standard procedure, despite an expensive burial, and that her facial position is consistent with a spasm occurring at or near the moment of death, rather than being a random side effect of decay. But even among the researchers themselves, agreement is far from complete. The theory of a sudden muscle spasm at death, while compelling, remains contested within forensic and archaeological circles. Some scientists caution that assigning a dramatic emotional cause, like death arriving in agony, to a 3,500-year-old body risks projecting modern assumptions on ancient remains that can never be fully interrogated. Muscle and tissue decomposition, burial pressure, and even the embalming process itself could independently produce a similar open-mouth appearance without any traumatic final moment at all. There is also caution built into the science itself. Egyptian antiquities researchers are careful, and rightly so, about overstating conclusions drawn from remains that cannot consent to examination and whose full context has been lost to time. Dr. Salim herself has been direct in acknowledging that the true cause of death cannot be established with certainty. This is not a cover-up. It is science functioning exactly as it should, cautious, incremental, unwilling to claim more than the evidence allows, even when the audience wants a dramatic answer. So what actually happened to her? There are three possibilities worth weighing. The first is the conventional explanation. She died of natural causes, illness, a cardiac event, or age-related decline, and her facial expression is simply the unremarkable result of rigor mortis and mummification chemistry, no different in principle from other screaming mummies found with similar mouth positions throughout Egyptian history. The second is the alternative theory. She died suddenly in physical distress or pain intense enough to trigger a spasm, locking her facial muscles at the exact moment embalmers received her body, before they had time or ability to reposition her jaw. The third is the skeptical position. The entire screaming framing may be a modern narrative imposed on an ancient body. Several other Egyptian mummies have been found with open mouths, and researchers increasingly suspect this may simply be a known, if uncommon, outcome of certain embalming conditions, unrelated to trauma or suffering at all. No single theory currently has enough evidence to eliminate the others.
Strip away the mystery, and what remains is something quieter and more human. A woman, once real, once breathing, once cared for enough that someone paid for costly imported resin to preserve her body for eternity. We do not know her name. We do not know her voice, her family, or the details of the day she died. All we have is a face, held open across 3,500 years, and the questions it refuses to stop asking. Why does this matter, beyond curiosity? Because it reminds us how much of history survives not in written record, but in physical evidence, waiting for the right tools and the right questions to come along. Every advance in imaging technology gives the past one more chance to speak, and every unresolved case, like hers, is proof that certainty is not something science owes us, only honesty about what remains unknown. Modern science can now see through 3,500 years of linen, resin, and time itself. It can map her bones, analyze her hair, and trace the exact chemical origin of the substances used to preserve her. But it still cannot tell us what she felt in her final moment. Was it agony? Was it simply the quiet mechanics of muscle and death? Or is her expression a message we are not yet equipped to read, proof that some mysteries survive not because we lack the technology, but because some truths were never meant to be recovered? The screaming woman has waited 3,500